Hendo here with Average Dude Slow-Pitch. Today we're getting a chance to bring out the Short Porch Chocolate Milkshake. This is their Kevlar tech. First time they've put it on the USSSA model. I know they put it on at least the blackout and the whiteout for their senior bats, but reason we've got two here today is we've got this one new, well, it was new in wrapper. We pulled the wrapper off. We're gonna test it right now so you can kind of see that starting compression piece. However, if you wanna see swings from kind of that 0 swing mark to about the 100, 120 swing mark, head over to Big Chef's softball channel. He's over there. He's got the swings on this one that he actually sent us that showed exactly where he got to with it. In his video, he got to final compression, I think, of right at 255, 260. So here in a second, you'll see we're gonna throw this one on the tester, see where it's at. Should be pretty much the same. I mean, we've seen some differences here at elevation as we talked about before versus sea level, but see where it's at. And then we figure rather than you having kind of two videos that show the exact same thing from 0 to 120, we might as well take the bat Chef sent over. Again, shout out to Chef, and give you those swings from that 120 swing mark to like the 250 swing mark, see how it's holding compression, things like that. So we're gonna go ahead, throw this on the tester. Once that's done, we'll still throw some 52s on it to see how it's performing now that it's a little bit lower compression at that 255, 260 mark, or at least we're assuming it's still there, that it didn't change since he sent it to us. And then we'll hop over to Pro M's, come back with final compression, final thoughts. Today, the field here's right at 305. We're using our normal Pro M's. So with those, we've got ZNs, we've got, ZN Hycons, Razos and Gold Dots. Those are 44 375s, no hardcores, no stadiums, no Onyx, anything like that. And then for our 52s, we're using 52 300 ZN Hycons. So let's go ahead, get this thing tested, and we'll test it, or get this on the compression tester, then we'll come back and test it out. All right, as we mentioned in the intro, we have a brand new out of wrapper milkshake right here that we're gonna test just to see kind of the starting compression for us. And then we're gonna throw quickly on the tester the one that Big Chef sent us that has 120 swings, which is the one we're actually gonna demo, because if you wanna see kind of how it performs from swing 0 up to the 120, go check out Big Chef's video on the chocolate milkshake. And then we're gonna give it kind of that 120 to almost 250 swing mark. So for us, we're looking at right at about 260 or so. Again, we've talked about it here at elevation. We do get a slight difference at times in compression. We found that, again, when I go down to like Florida for tournaments or Georgia, I usually get about 10 PSI back. So that 260 pushes us to about 270. Again, that's no perfect math. Testers aren't perfect. That's why even the calibration's plus or minus 25, but that's just for reference. And then here's the one again, shout out to Big Chef, 120 swings is what they put on it. If you want to see what those swings look like, again, check out his video. Chef does a great job. Pretty much all the videos he does at this point. Me and him talk a lot about everything, and we plan to collab here soon. But the milkshake with 120, I know his tested at 255, so we're expecting to be pretty much there still. Yeah, and there you can see it. I mean, ours might be a tick lower, so again, spot on with what it was over there at sea level with Chef. But either way, this is the one we're gonna throw swings on, as we mentioned. We're gonna go for at least 80 more swings, get to that 200 swing mark, if not more. Then we'll get final compression, final thoughts, and let you know exactly how many swings we took. All right, I don't think we mentioned in the intro, might have mentioned during the testing portion, but either way, this is a 13-inch barrel, balanced on this one, and we're swinging a 26-ounce model today, just so you're aware. I think there's some of these left in stock at both Short Porch and Headbanger Sports. You can use code ADS at Headbangers to grab one, and code DUDE, D-U-D-E, over at Short Porch to grab one. These were a limited run though, so if you do decide to grab one, just make sure you do so before they're sold out.
94 miles per hour.
Yeah, if you haven't swung Short Porch before or haven't watched kind of previous reviews, they do have a stiffer type handle and stiffer type barrel. So like on that one, even with 52s, I could tell I caught a little bit lower, got a little bit of sting on the hands. For me, I've talked about in the past, I like that kind of feedback. But if you're somebody that really hates the sting off the hands, things like that, a stiffer barrel, stiffer handle kind of combo may not be what you're looking for. But for 52s, it's nice to see that you can get that feedback even with the USSSA bat.
85 miles per hour. 101 miles per hour.
Almost slipped off this turf. Pretty good feel there. As you get to the sweet spot, it obviously does soften up a little bit. You'd expect that at that kind of 255 compression mark. And as obviously it's going to compress more there than it would lower high, but you could still tell that you caught sweet spot and got pretty good feedback with the 52s.
88 miles per hour.
There we go.
98 miles per hour.
Probably slightly low of sweet spot. I mean, it wasn't sting, but it didn't feel quite right. Oh!
92 miles per hour. 78 miles per hour.
little off the end, but it felt good.
97 miles per hour.
That felt like the sweet spot. Good carry.
83 miles per hour. 94 miles per hour.
Yeah, and again, we weren't going to put a ton of 52s on it. Again, we're not really trying to initially break this in like we would with other bats, break the fibers in. Chef swung it for us, but as you saw between my swings, Wally's swings, it handles 52s just fine. I'd like to see it maybe the sweet spot slightly, or feel slightly larger, but the good news is even when you're catching, I think 100, 101, something like that was our top speed. Even as you kind of miss that no kidding sweet spot, I was even still able to get kind of that high to mid 90s. So there's not a ton of drop off. So really no complaint there. What I really like is you get the feedback to know exactly where you caught the ball, when it's low, when it's high. So you get closer to the sweet spot, a little harder to tell, but again, they're 52s. What we're gonna do now though, obviously, jump over to Pro M's, what the bat's actually designed for, see how this thing performs now that it's been broken in and Marcus over there, Big Chef, did all the work for us.
100 miles per hour. 101 miles per hour.
Okay. Definitely comes through the zone smooth, even for being a 26 balance. To me, it feels a lot more like a mid-load model, something like you would see with like Monster, for instance. So what's nice about that for me is that I'm pretty positive on this. I've talked short porch about it, but they don't counterweight their handles like some of the other companies do. So that balance is going to give you more of that slightly loaded feel, which I think really helps kind of bring it through the zone without getting all the extra weight in the end load for people who don't like an end load. So I think you get kind of the best of both worlds where it helps drive the barrel through, give you some pop, while also allowing you to really control it.
86 miles per hour. 97 miles per hour.
That one felt pretty good. We obviously didn't get to swing this thing from swing number one. We watched Chef's video. We saw kind of his thoughts on it, but I will say with it now at about that 255, 260 mark, compared to other short porch barrels, I will say the no kidding sweet spot feels softer than I would have expected. It's like that last one. Yeah, you didn't get any feedback on the hands. It obviously lets you know you caught it right, because if you catch it high or catch it low, you're going to get a little bit of that stiff feel, sting on the hands, things like that. So at least you still know once you kind of get used to the bat, what sweet spot, what's not. But if you're somebody who's used to maybe like the wig popper, dill pickle, or pickle juice, I think is what they called it, the other earlier models they came out with, Salty Dog, you're just not going to have that same overly stiff barrel as that compression comes down. So that's something you really liked. Just keep that in mind. But so far, forgiving, feels good. Also only a handful of swings in, so we'll keep going and see if we can tell a no kidding sweet spot versus just kind of that general area.
90 miles per hour.
Dancing.
That was a nice
98 miles per hour.
That one felt like every bit of the sweet spot. Carried good, came off good. I mean, even for the exit or for the launch angle, good exit velo. So definitely, I think that was the first one I felt the response I'd expect from the sweet spot, which lets me know you're going to get really good feedback on that spot. Maybe not the largest sweet spot, but so far even barely outside of it. As that feedback is a little bit softer, you're still getting performance. So it's just, again, getting some BP swings, which you can do with a bat like this, because again, it's up to basically 160, 170 swings now between our 52s, Pro Ams, and Chef swings, and it's still passing and everything like that. So you can definitely BP it and get real comfortable with your bat.
87 miles per hour. 109 miles per hour.
Well, that's the actual sweet spot. Figured that one out. That ball came off great. First one, completely different feel than the rest, which is obviously apparent by what we saw at the speed, but that's exactly what we want. We're going to keep going and see if we can't hone into exactly where that spot is and see if maybe it expands with even more swings.
91 miles per hour.
There we go.
110 miles per hour.
Yep, okay. Okay.
93 miles per hour. 107 miles per hour.
Okay, so from the last three, I've noticed the sweet spot is a little bit high of middle, center, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it's basically kind of where the face of this cow is. So just kind of keep that in mind. Maybe it's not the same with every single one, but as you're BPing, if you feel like, hey, I'm having trouble finding the sweet spot, obviously kind of adjust your swing and locate it, because those last three I've kind of purposely tried to get a little further down the barrel, and I felt like we were really catching the right spot at this point. So we'll keep it going and see if that kind of holds true, but at least that lets us know what the difference was in kind of those first however many swings with the Pro-Ms.
105 miles per hour. 81 miles per hour. 98 miles per hour.
So that was back to kind of centered up where I thought obviously the sweet spot was initially, or kind of where I think most people expect initially. But again, you saw the forgiveness there. Yeah, we see a drop off in the velo, but it carries off good. You still get a good feel. And once you realize where that sweet spot is, you can tell the difference in your hands, sound, all that kind of stuff of the sweet spot versus obviously just missing that spot.
101 miles per hour.
Yeah, again, I think just low that sweet spot, but we're getting the forgiveness we need. And yeah, we might not hit the, like for me, obviously the 109 kind of top velo with this, but if anytime I'm not catching the no kidding sweet spot, I can still get right at 100. It's going to get the job done, do what you want, especially if you're placing the ball correctly, which is far more important than just what it's topping out at velo-wise. And as we've talked about a bunch, the whole reason we use the velo is to measure kind of the forgiveness piece. And so that's what we're looking for with this here anyways.
107 miles per hour. 85 miles per hour. 106 miles per hour.
Well, as we break that ball on the rocks and it sat up there, that's going to do it. So again, we'll talk about it more in the final thoughts, but as we mentioned, sweet spot, a little high center, definitely something I picked up on there. So we went through, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's why you want to BP bats, or I guess in this instance, if you don't have time to BP, you want to just go out, swing it. You watch the reviews, whether it's from Chef, myself, League Night Heroes, Cole Campbell, Haven Nation, whoever's it might be, Bat Flip, BP Hero. I know I'm leaving people out, Swing Cartel. There's all sorts of channels out there, right? So you can watch those, get kind of that feedback, see if everyone kind of agrees with what's going on there. And then from there, you can take that out there and game it. But let's go ahead, pick these balls up, come back, get the final compression now that we're a little over 200 swings here on this one. And then we'll talk about more in the final thoughts. All right, now that our swing's complete, let's go ahead and see where our chocolate milkshake is testing at. We ended up looking at the pocket radar kind of log there, and we took 93 swings. So if Chef was at 120, we'll call that as 90 more. So we're basically at 210 at this point. So somewhere between 200 and 220 swings, basically. I don't know if he swung any 52s. I'd have to go back and watch his video. For us, we took 30 52 swings between the two of us. So 60 of these swings are basically Pro-Ms as well. But sitting on 0. And we're sitting right at about 240, maybe slightly over at 245. Either way, we just got done swinging this thing about 10, 15 minutes ago. I mean, it didn't take us long to pick up the balls. So we've talked about it before. If you let the bats sit, and again, you wouldn't, if I was going to a tournament right now, I wouldn't have BP'd my gamer per se before heading out there. So just keep that in mind. But I'd be willing to bet we let this thing sit for the day, come back out and test it tomorrow. We're looking closer to probably that 250 mark. You get almost 10 PSI back normally. But again, testers are pretty finicky, and you just never know what you're going to get. But either way, still passing at the 220 swing mark at this point. And again, that's with a bunch of repetitive BP swings. From where we were swinging it from Chef, definitely could have gained it from that point, and we'll talk about that more in the final thoughts.
All right, let's see where our 26-ounce short porch chocolate milkshake scales. And 26.17, so obviously 0.17 ounces over sticker weight. As we mentioned, with that kind of almost mid-load feel with this one, I mean, it pretty much feels pretty true to what you're seeing there, just a little bit over 26. I would still go with the weight that you normally go with.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the short porch chocolate milkshake. Again, this is a 13-inch balance model using their Kevlar tech that was on their whiteout senior bat, blackout senior bat. Obviously, you don't play senior bat, you haven't tried it, or senior ball, you haven't tried it. But first time they put on the USSSA model, I am going to reach out to short porch. I'm interested to see kind of how the Kevlar piece kind of works, how much of Kevlar, I guess, is put into the composite, things like that, what they're able to kind of give me. Obviously, they're not going to give away their engineering secrets, and nor would I expect them to, but just kind of curious on how that goes. It's always nice to see when companies talk about kind of new tech, things they changed, trying to find out what obviously changed so we can give you guys kind of that info. But either way, with all that being said, again, this one was the one that Big Chef swung. So if you want to see kind of the swing 0 to 100 from out of the wrapper, go over to Big Chef's channel, check out his video. And then if you want to obviously see the swings from 100 plus up to like 220, which is what we got to, that's what we just kind of had for you. And so with that, we took about 30 kind of 52 swings, threw some of those on there so you could kind of see it. Good 52 performance. Again, one of the things I really liked from Short Porch from day one with the USSSA side, and again, this is now bat 7 or 8, I believe, from them as well. They have the nice kind of stiff barrels with that kind of stiffer type handle. So you get really good feedback and performance with the 52s. While for us, and Wally kind of agreed, he had to bounce out early, head out to work, but the sweet spot, no kidding, sweet spot was a little bit small at times, and that was the only spot that was a little soft per se with the 52s. But it makes sense because you're catching the sweet spot. That should be the spot that's kind of compressing the most, giving you kind of the extra bounce from the ball, whatever. Obviously, those aren't scientific terms there, but so it makes sense there. And then what was great is anytime you missed just off of that sweet spot, you felt the stiffer feel lower, higher, so you knew that you missed. And even if you caught just off the sweet spot, you still got enough feedback to know, okay, I didn't quite catch it right, but we saw that it performed fine at those times and still came off really well with a very small drop off in kind of the forgiveness piece, which again is why we run the velo there. So you can see each person's kind of topping out number along with kind of their average-ish, and then when they're missing where they're getting, and now you can kind of get an idea of the forgiveness on these bats. Then as we hopped over to the Pro-Ms, and again, this thing was starting at 255, or at 255, 260 for us, the ending point obviously for Big Chef. It was apparent right away that this thing was pretty much game ready. Other than for me, and Wally kind of agreed after we talked about it, and he kind of clicked, was realizing that the sweet spot was a little bit high of center. So as opposed to being kind of center of the barrel, it felt like it was more up here to where the cow's kind of face is. Once we kind of figured that out, it was easy to get a lot more consistent, see those higher speeds. And then that's one of those where now you've put the time into BP it. Again, you get your 100, 150 swings on this thing, really kind of open up your bat as you're rotating the barrel. And now you know when you're swinging, you've adjusted your swing to match the bat that you've chosen to game. So if you do decide to pull this thing out of the wrapper and game it, from watching Chef's video, I think 100% you could get away with that. Sweet spot's going to be not quite as forgiving just yet because of the kind of stiffer construction of it. But understanding where that sweet spot is will make it to where you can do so successfully, especially if you're bringing out, let's say right now, while it's a little bit colder, playing in league, stuff like that, and you're gonna use that to break it in. Just understand that's kind of what you're looking for there. So if you take it out and you weren't aware of that and you were BPing it a bunch, kind of like we were early on, my first probably 10 to 15 Pro-M swings, I kept swearing I was catching it right in the middle, wasn't kind of getting the performance. So that kind of finally clicked that, hey, let's adjust a little bit higher and see what happens. And that's what kind of led to me to finding kind of where that sweet spot is at. So that's kind of the only abnormality, I guess I'll go with on this one. Again, from the previous kind of Short Porch models, and this I think is the lowest compression we've gotten one other than the Hot Chicken. It did remind me a lot of, now that we're at that kind of 250-ish area, the softer-ish feel off of the sweet spot because of the lower compression, which again, isn't a bad thing by any means. It's just something that you need to understand, that when you feel that kind of softer feel, you're not getting any kind of true feedback on the hands. That's your sweet spot. The ball actually takes off. And then as you start moving away from the sweet spot in either direction, you'll feel a little bit more in the hands. You'll feel more of that stiffer feel. That's letting you know you're not catching the sweet spot. So good job from Short Porch on giving that feedback that you want to see there as well. As far as maybe kind of the only con is, I do think the no kidding sweet spot might have been a little bit small because it felt like you had to no kidding hit basically the cow's face to get that true top end exit velo. But as we saw with my swings, Wally's swings, even as you missed away from that, as long as you stayed in the general area of what you'd want your sweet spot to normally be, it performed just fine. Wasn't huge drop-offs. And then on the ones we talked about early on, we're catching it low, feeling the sting on the hands. Still, for me, able to get high 90s. Wally was still able to stay in his mid 80s, so there wasn't a lot of drop-off either. So you definitely get a good forgiveness on it. Just, again, keep in mind that kind of sweet spot portion. But I really like to see that now 7-ish bats in. And again, that might be the exact number from Short Porch. Each drop, definitely they're making strides in my mind. I love they don't do all the counterweighting in the handle. That's something I really like about that. So you're getting kind of that true feel of whatever weighting they're giving you, whether it's the 26 balance, which like I said, to me, feels a little bit more like a mid-load. Wally kind of agreed that this didn't feel like a traditional 26 balance. And so I explained the whole counterweighting thing to him. Obviously, I kind of made sense to him, and he ended up really liking it. He's not a huge balance fan, and honestly, either am I. But by getting that more mid-load feel, it was super easy to get comfortable with for me, for Wally, locating that sweet spot, driving through the zone, all that kind of stuff, easy to control. And then obviously, as you go end load, stuff like that, just keep that in mind. So if you go with later on, let's say a 1 ounce end load from short porch, it's going to feel heavier than your traditional 1 ounce end load without that counterweighting. So that's something you're going to want to keep in mind there too. But with this one, either way, I would recommend if you pick one of these up that you do decide to BP it, I would BP it first, get used to where that sweet spot is, breaking it a little bit. Again, we're over 200 swings now, and we're just now in that 240, 250 range, which I'm guessing we're more like the 250, 255 when you factor in we just got done hitting it, we're at elevation, things like that. But great choice for any balance fans out there. If you're not really a balance fan, you want a little bit of end load, I still think you get the feel from that as well, so it can work for either of those type of players as well. You can BP it. I don't think cold weather will be a problem on it at all. I mean, again, it's 55 degrees now. We started, it was right at 60. So, I mean, it's not cold here by any means. We keep balls, bats indoors. But with the way their compression holds, kind of the stiffer feel and what I've seen from short porch so far, I don't think you have any issues with this being a colder weather bat as you wait for it to heat or warm up. And then you can dial this thing in so it's ready for obviously the season as it's fast approaching now at this point. So either way, if you want to grab one of these, head over to either headbangersports.com or shortporchbaseballcompany.com, I think is the full web address. On Short Porch, it's going to be code DUDE, D-U-D-E. It's also in the description if you forget, along with a link and the link tree, which will take you straight there. For Headbanger Sports, it's code ADS. Both those will get you discounts. If you want help ordering it, you have some questions on weighting, whatever it might be, just reach out. We'll get you squared away. If there's any other gear you're looking for, again, that link tree in the description is all the different links we've been able to kind of get companies to send over to help out you guys, the viewers, on any gear that you might want. But if there's something you want to grab, maybe the code doesn't work for it, or it's not the price you're kind of looking for, didn't knock off whatever amount, just reach out and we'll see what we can do for you to help you with whether expedited shipping, anything like that. Or if you just have questions on what might fit your swing the best based on what you've been swinging in previous years and you're ready to upgrade, let us know and we'll do our best to help out. But either way, hopefully it's kind of helped you decide if you want to grab one of these, maybe a different model from Short Porch, or maybe you're leaning on a different direction at this point. Either way, we appreciate the support for the channel. Thanks for checking the video out, and hop over to Big Chef's channel and check out the initial kind of swing 0 to 100 on this one as well. Again, me and him are going to collab here real soon when I head down to Challenge Cup, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But thanks for the support. Have a great day.